Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Aaron.
Every time I see the word Pimpernel, I think it says pumpernickel.
In this game, you play as one of the members of the League who is helping the Scarlet Pimpernel on 7 missions throughout Paris and France and England, and we're trying to help him make a path to get from town to town. We're trying to collect resources for him to complete resource missions because he needs these certain resources to pull off the mission. We need to get supporters to help him as well, and then we're going to have different leaders on these like sub-missions that will help guide us along these missions.
If none of that made sense, mechanically, it's a cube pusher, right? I mean, mostly.
Every cube you put on the board has the potential of earning you a victory point.
So it's kind of point salad in that effect, you could say. And if you're using the term as point salad, meaning a lot of everything you does gets you a point.
Yeah, but it's not everything you do, because you can put cubes places that never score. Like, I'm going to build this route, but then the leader of that route is going to take us a different way because there's another option out there.
Potentially, but I feel like that's the... that
you can also place on these buildings to get these things.
No, you'll still get a point. No, you're right.
No, you get a point when it clears.
Correct. Because there's ways that you could just straight up make bad choices. Right? Yeah. Obviously, that would get you no points. But if you're playing strategically, the only way that you would make what you think are good choices that will get you points is if you place in the wrong path, right? Yeah. Or if you put cubes up here, but everybody else puts more, and then somebody else chooses that they come down here. You know what I mean? Never choose yours.
Yeah. So if you're building up all these resources, say like I'm putting a bunch of disguises up here. Yeah. I just keep putting them up there, and then you put a couple disguises here, and then we go on a mission, and you're the mission leader, and we only need one disguise. You could choose your disguise as the one, so that's going to score a victory point for you, and mine just keeps sitting up here as a majority holder, which gives me a special power of, well, that one is, what, number 1, the Seamstress? So you get the Seamstress Power, which every game is different, which is really cool. All of these little power tokens, there's a ton of them. You randomly distribute them. You put them in all of these different leaders, and they all go up here at the top. Whenever you have a majority in one of those resources, you get that, and it's like a double action that you can take on your turn.
That's probably the most interesting thing in the game, because for the most part, you have 3 basic actions. You can move your person to the 4 different locations. Yeah. You can place a cube, or you can activate a building. And to activate a building, you first have to place your cube on it to own that building, and then you can activate buildings you own. But when you start getting these majorities up here and you get these special actions, they all have 2 things you can do on them. So it lets you move in, place a cube, or just get one of these resources up here, or activate a building you have somewhere on the board. And that's where the game kind of starts moving a little bit, because you're not just doing one thing every turn.
That is really powerful, but mostly in just an efficiency sort of way. It's not inherently good if you don't utilize them correctly.
Yeah, but there is somewhat of a race to some of it, like building the opportune path.
Right.
Like, this is obviously the path we're probably going to take, so getting on that path early and having cards that let you get on that path and do things up here is definitely...
But there's a chance that all of these special actions, none of them have a road, because there's enough of them that...
there is also a chance that there's a double road!
Yes, but there's also, activate a building and then get a horse. So you could activate a building that gets you a disguise and then a horse. Yep. And now you're doubling up here where some other people might not be able to do 2 at the same time.
Yeah. So the game that I was comparing this to, and actually it has been a little while since I played it, but is Kalimala, and I really, really like that game. But the areas in which it's closest is mostly just the majorities. And I could even say that the paths are somewhat similar. It's not a majority, but it's like you do want to have the majority
the building.
Yeah, if it's this route, like you're saying, if we're going down this route, you want to have the majority of cubes there.
Because you get points per cube, so you want to get the most points.
Because otherwise you'd be like, oh, I'm getting 3 points, but if he's getting 4, I don't want it to go that way. You know what I mean? Yeah, but it's a lot like Kalimala in that way of just like, it's very like, I have one more than you. Now I have one more than you. Now I have one more than you. You know, it's a very push and pull. Scores can be really close in that effect. You know what I mean?
One way you can semi-combat that is to become the leader of that leg of the mission. Like, so if it's the path, if you put your cube here saying that you're going to lead that part of the mission of, choosing the path, you could start working on a second path to try and get yourself more points on a different path, and then you're going to, as the leader, as long as it's a completed path, you can choose whichever one.
Yeah, and I tried that, but what happens is as soon as you take the leader and you start making an obvious different path, everyone else is going to start jumping in front of you, say, oh, well, if we're going on that path, I want a piece of that pie too.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if they have an ability that has a path on it, then they're able to jump on your path and do something else at the same time. So I really think that having a lot of these is just so huge.
Well, and utilizing them correctly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really is.
Yeah.
Like, while I would agree with you that having a lot of those is super powerful, and utilizing them is, the best thing that you could do. The only slight risk you have to using these a whole bunch is you could run out of cubes a bit faster. And now that everyone else is not that they have more turns than you per se, but they are kind of going last and can be
Unless you see that coming and
especially with the
you block these off really quick. Like, as soon as you see I'm running out of cubes, I'm not going to let you take turns without me doing anything, so I'm just going to lock these out.
Yeah, because there's kind of like this chicken mechanism. So either once all 5 leader spots have been taken, we end the round, or once everybody is consecutively passed because they don't want to go or they've ran out of cubes, then we end the round. So yeah, if I'm ditching cubes really quickly because I'm taking these double actions, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take an action where I get to put a cube down. So I'm going to put a cube on this card. I put it there, which lets me trigger one up here, and I also get to put a cube on the wagon because, that's part of this action as well. So now, I put 3 cubes out for 1 action.
And I will say that putting 3 cubes out in a single action is the most exciting thing in this entire game. I'm not getting to put 1 cube. I didn't get to place 2 cubes. I placed 3 cubes, guys.
Yeah?
Game maker.
That is almost 4 cubes.
Like, at the end of the day, it's just putting cubes on a board. Like, I got really bored.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, so is Kalimala.
But Kalimala, you still have where it splits and different things.
You put a worker between 2 spots.
And I think you said this is kind of like a much simpler Kalimala.
Well, it's, again, the only similarities is the fact that you feel this constant push and pull of wanting majorities.
But I think that the complexity that Kalimala has, though, is part of what makes me like that game.
Right. It takes this type of idea of, I want to win everything, but I can't win everything. So what's the most efficient way that I can win the things that would benefit me the most? Kalimala has a more clever way of implementing the way that you do that, and I would agree with that. I will say that I think the path is interesting. And I like the dichotomy here of I want to have the majority in that spot so I have this tile, but I also want those cubes of mine to drop down here so I get points. Because if I just keep that tile all the time and yet Aaron's cubes are dropping down every time, that's not good. Like, those 2 things are the most interesting or clever, but they're not that clever. Because, like, this path thing, I mean, Pulsar has a path thing. So does Orleans, and so does Marco Polo. And several games do. Coimbra has a path aspect. I mean, I don't know. I'm getting really vague. It's not the same type of path aspect. But I see what you're saying in that it's not...
Like, I think that the concept of the game is really interesting. And I could see if someone's like, this game's awesome. I could get, like, why, you get into, like... There are points where there are interesting decisions to be made. Like, if I get to decide what resources come down onto the thing... Do I want to score my points but potentially lose a majority? Or do I want to give you points but take majority away from you? Like, that is that's a really interesting choice because I'm giving up points, but I'm also getting a more powerful action that may lead to more points in future rounds.
You can also become a bit of a kingmaker if you're dragging down cubes and none of your cubes are even part of it. You know?
I do feel like there's a little bit of, once you get behind, it can be really hard to catch up because... once everyone... if you don't have any special actions... it's a 3-player game, and Tom has 3, and Aaron has 3, and I have none. For me to get those is going to be difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but because, if I'm trying to say, okay, I'm gonna get the disguises. So I have buildings to get me disguises, so every turn I'm just pumping disguises up here. And Aaron has something that also, this one that gets you disguises.
Yeah,
So he is activating one of his buildings and getting disguises. So he's
double
keeping up with me and then doing something else at the same time. Things like that, I think, are really hard to contend with if you don't have the right abilities.
But Aaron brought up a good point that there was something we kept forgetting to do.
Yeah, so if I have a building and I keep using the building action, I'm like, oh yeah, I have this super cool I can use a building every turn. Well, you can just go and take an action to use a building if you're in that zone. You knock me out of it. You take control of that building now.
Yeah.
And so now I have to like waste a turn moving back down there, which, unless I have a special action that lets me move and place a cube, it's going to take me a while to take that back. So like you can throw a wrench in whoever like is kind of leading.
You can, but it's still like, because one, when I take a building from you, it's still giving you another cube that round.
Yes.
So then I have one more cube to catch up on. And not saying I can't, but that's a few turns to try to take a majority.
But it's not, he has the building and he has this, he has that combo, I can't get that
no
combo.
way out of it.
Yeah, you just take my buildings away from me and you kind of nerf this whole awesome action. If I have no buildings, then this action is kind of worthless.
I also feel like that by the time that you take that, you got like, I'm focusing on getting this building to do this thing. Oh, well now you guys made the whole path. Or now I'm focusing on getting this building away from you, but now you filled up the whole card. Mm-hmm. So even though I may be taking a thing away from you, you're like, cool, you got this majority, now you have a ability. I got 6 points off while you were doing that.
Yeah, that definitely is an issue, and there's a little bit of knowing how to play, knowing what's strong, you know what I mean? This game also has a decent amount of just like timing, you know what I mean? Because now there's efficiency in that I can do two things when you do one. You do one, you do one, I do two. You do one, you do one, I do two. But also just, I do this before you. I do this first, and then I am in charge of this. You know what I mean? It's just like, I want to do that, and that. I guess I'll do this one first, because then it doesn't clue everybody into that I really want to do that. Mm-hmm. Which is a little, you were talking about with that game of chicken in ending it with this, but also that the claiming the path thing could also just be like, I don't care where it goes. I don't care where it goes. I'm just going to put... I'm assuming it's going to come down this way. Come on, guys. I'm assuming it's going to come down this way. Boom, I'm choosing it, and I'm going to put two more over here, so it's going to take a quick loop over here. There's a little bit of, like, not letting that information out. You know what I mean?
So in the situation we were playing, where, like, it was going this way, and I wanted to reroute it. If I started building a path up this way, and that wasn't taken, and you... like, I think it would be pretty clear, like, oh... he's building a path that obviously doesn't make sense. I'm going to get this to make sure my path activates and his doesn't.
But there's also, you do have like the other two missions, the next two missions.
So you could hypothetically be planning ahead for them.
That you're doing that.
It really depends on, what city we're currently in, where he's going.
Yeah.
And then what city could possibly be the next one that he goes to.
First of all, I think I liked it more than you. I think both me and Aaron liked it more than you. I definitely see where you're coming from. But I don't think any of those reasons are enough for me to dislike it. I will play it again, but it is dinged a little bit, and there are...
It's not super heavy.
It's not. You're right. It's a bit... light. It is easier to teach than Kalimala, but I'd rather play Kalimala over this.
There are some really cool decisions to be made. There are certain points in the game where you're like, ooh, I have a tough choice to make. But having to, like, get there, and I feel like the game is just so much grinding. There's so much of, like, put a cube. Pretty cute.
Especially because it's, well, I guess in a 6-player game, what do you have,
only have 10 cubes.
It'd be a little bit I would like to play it at that higher player count.
Overall, I just got really bored. Like, it stopped being, like, fun, and it was just like a chore. If somebody's like, let's play this, I'd say, let's pick something else.
Really? Yeah. I would definitely play it again.
I would play it again. It's kind of like a beer and pretzels Euro game, where, like, you could play it kind of mindlessly, but it feels like a big game because like it takes up a lot of real estate. It's like you're just chucking cubes around. You're trying to I'm gonna be the leader for this mission. You throw a bunch of stuff up there. You can kind of like ask people, hey, if you put all of your papers up here, we need papers. I'll use yours, but then like not use them and use your own instead. Like you can kind of try and make pacts with people and stab in the back because you're all kind of working together to complete these, but not really because you want to get the most points and be the most helpful to the Scarlet Pimpernel.
There is certainly enough interesting stuff to keep me engaged.
So if you guys do want to check this game out, we will have a purchase link in the description box down below where you can get yourself a copy.
While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. Every time I see the word Pimpernel, I think it says pumpernickel. And then I think of that scene in SpongeBob where he's procrastinating writing his essay. And he's like, if you're going to make a sandwich, he's talking to the mailman. He's like, you're going to make a sandwich. Are you going to put it on rye or pumpernickel? And then this mailman's like, don't you have an essay to write? And he's like, how did he know I had an essay to write? See, the reason why I went long there is because maybe we could cut and put the clip of SpongeBob, or maybe we could just cut right after I said, I always think it says Pumpernickel. We have so many options with that one take I did. You need to give me a raise. Let's do it. Sound good?
And we're going to keep all of that.